welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're scheduled to go at 2:30, so for those of you who aren't aware, we're the panel, How Fashion is Using Content to Change the Face of Branding. So I'll start by introducing myself and then have the other panelists introduce themselves as well. My name is Elisa Gould-Simon, and I run marketing and communications for a mobile startup called Pose that is based in Los Angeles, and before that I worked as a fashion journalist.
Hi, I'm Brooke Hartman. I run product at Rent the Runway. We're a Netflix for fashion that rents designer dresses to women at about 10% of the retail price.
Hi, I'm Daniel Saint. You can follow me at Daniel Saint, S-A-Y-N-T on Twitter. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Rebecca Minkoff, and I ran a successful fashion blog before doing that.
Hey, I'm Tim Riley. I'm from Warby Parker. Warby Parker is an online eyewear company that sells and manufactures its own glasses for $95, includes the prescription. And I'm in charge of the online experience, which basically means trying to make the process of buying glasses as easy and fun as possible.
Cool. So for starters, there's been a consistent theme and trend in the fashion industry recently where commerce engines are becoming a lot more focused on generating content, and a lot of magazine editors are moving over to e-commerce sites, and the kind of lines between the two are becoming increasingly blurred. So my first question to you all is, what effect do you think this is having on the consumer? And are consumers becoming increasingly receptive of brand-generated content, or do you think they're increasingly skeptical of it?
So I would say not only are consumers receptive of brands generating content, but I think they expect it. So for Rent the Runway, what that means is that, it's not just a transactional experience, and it's really a destination site where we're creating the entire look for women and really editorializing the experience.
On our end at Rebecca Minkoff, what we've done is we've really taught our followers and our fans, our Minkettes, to basically submit content and be a part of the language of what we're kind of pushing out there. So they don't feel that it's not authentic. They're seeing themselves, they're seeing bloggers and individuals and influencers that they love wearing the product, and the experience for the content that is branded content is actually stuff that they want to see and get excited about.
And for Warby Parker, the big piece here is education. It's a new phenomenon for most people to start buying their eyewear online. It's a very personal, high-touch experience, and I think the more you can provide someone to help them along the way and help them, buy glasses confidently or buy whatever it is that they're shopping for is super, super helpful.
Cool. And I think these three panelists come from interesting backgrounds in terms of representing an online retailer that carries multiple brands, a singular brand that sells both online and brick and mortar, but has the face of the company as the designer as well, and then Warby Parker, which is a singular brand but doesn't necessarily have a face of the company or a single designer. So if you could talk a little bit about your respective companies and how you've kind of come to define your voice based on where your brand is coming from.
So for our voice, I think what Warby Parker said is spot on for Rent the Runway, where number one, we have to be really educational because we are a brand new customer experience. So being really authentic about what the Rent the Runway experience is and helping customers kind of navigate that from the end-to-end process is really important. Beyond that, it's really about kind of blending this really luxury and aspirational experience that's obviously important for not only our customers but also our designer partners, with something that feels kind of accessible. So you can now rent the $3,000 dress for $300 and it will fit you, and kind of giving real women the confidence to do that.
Yeah, on our end, it was definitely about defining what was the voice of Rebecca. When I joined the company, there was no set guidelines to what that voice was and how it sounded, what words she would use, what idiomisms, basically how she would speak. So what we did was that we really kind of created a character profile for Rebecca Minkoff and who she is as an individual, and then allowed our fans to kind of weigh in on the character profile of who they were. And so we have two distinct voices that are kind of pushed out there. One that is very, very strictly Rebecca's, one that is, very much about her likes, her loves, the things that she's interested in, and that pushes the brand forward. And then one that is very much based around the community and the shoppers and the people who love the brand, so that they can basically weigh in and say, this is how the brand relates to me, this is how the brand speaks to me, and this is how I communicate that back.
I think for Warby Parker, because it's not a single person, we just decided to say, hey, if you were a human being, how would you like to be talked to, and how would you like to, to sort of engage with the company online? And so what that meant is, basically respecting the customer and talking to them as if they're intelligent, but never condescending to them, and then being a little witty and clever, but not so much over the so that it would be confusing. So we just try to make it as human as possible, so that you can just feel like you're interacting with, a neighbor or a friend or whoever.
And kind of to go back to the content theme, what have you learned or what's worked well in terms of the kind of content you've used on different platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or your own blog or website?
So for us, I think on our site, one thing that's been really successful is allowing our users to participate. So for instance, reviews of product and testimonials are really important, and we just relaunched reviews where you can upload a photo and share the best compliment you received, and it helps foster a community and helps women kind of like perpetuate the cycle of compliments even after the rental experience. So that helps us create stickiness. And then on Facebook and Twitter, really it's just about engagement, obviously, and so letting our customers participate and be part of the brand, whether it's what should we name this dress, or we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary, what promotion do you want, and allowing our customers to really feel like they're a part of Rent the Runway.
For us, we created an entire experience for our consumers, a website called minkette.com. Basically what we did is that we trained our readers and followers and consumers of the brand to kind of share the content that we push out there. So 3 months before we actually launched, we began to run a number of retweet, reshare, reblog campaigns for the content that we were pushing out through Facebook or through Twitter or through Tumblr before we actually launched the blog. And the result for us was that when we did launch and we started producing the content and pushing it out there, we'd get up to some of our top posts are 1,200 shares on Facebook, on Twitter, and through email and StumbleUpon and all these other sites. So we can now push out content that has more shares than most media platforms. Now brands that we partner with beg us to write about them because of how successful our shares are. Because we've done that, the bloggers that wear our product are excited when we feature them on our site. We don't have to pay for that content anymore because they get a huge boost in traffic just from what we're doing on our site. So training your readers is really, really important. Training your consumer to share the content that you put out there, because if you're just putting it out there, it's just sitting there and no one's really engaging with it, then it's pretty pointless.
At Warby Parker, we have something called a home try-on program. So if you're looking to buy glasses online and you're not really sure which ones will fit, you can select 5 frames and we'll send them to you for free. You can try them on at home. And what we decided doing was we wanted to see what people were doing with the glasses and how they looked. So we just encouraged people to post things on our Facebook wall. And it's become a really great tool for feedback. So essentially someone will get the kit, they'll take 5 photos, they'll upload it, they'll ask for advice, we'll say, hey, I think this one fits really well, this one not so much. And then those people become really empowered because they're looking for that sort of extra mechanism of feedback and sort of an expert opinion. And then what ends up happening is this weird thing where they'll ask and we'll give them feedback, and then maybe 2 days later we'll see them back on the wall commenting on someone else's picture saying like, oh yeah, those frames look amazing on you. And suddenly like all of a sudden they've sort of become experts by default because they went through the process previously. So it's this self-perpetuating thing that we have going on Facebook.
And any other content-driven campaigns that have been especially successful, and why do you think they were?
So we do something every fashion week called Style Council, where we invite all of our members to rate the runway, and we post like as the runway shows are happening what we think the top looks are, and let them kind of be the buyer and vote. And it always, like, our fans triple that week, and we get tons of amazing engagement with people coming back every single show, literally, and participating. So that's just been a super successful way for us to engage people. And also to help kind of influence some of our buys, and our fashion team actually does use that intelligence.
For us, what we've found to be most successful is when we have direct communication from Rebecca to our Minkettes. We basically, kind of challenge them to post photos or to share looks or, send us a photo of your dog. like things like that, things that are just, what are you eating today? And just random questions, and Rebecca responds back, and you have this back and forth, but it provides us content that we can then take onto Mincat, our blog, and reshare and give it out there to our readers. The other thing that we've done is our first ad campaign, our first true print ad campaign, was shot using Instagram, and it was shot with our members submitting photos. So we picked our favorite ones, and we actually incorporated into our campaign. So we had our first real print advertising campaign in Style.com magazine, and it wasn't even shot by us. It was shot by our members, and the engagement around that really increased our following on Instagram and allowed us to build an even stronger audience through a medium that we weren't strong in yet.
I think for us, because we were such a young brand, we've only been around about 20 months, we took the traditional approach of going into normal press outfits like GQ or Vogue or things of that nature, and then what ends up happening is this whole blogger community sort of looks at these things for kind of what's happening, and then one person will post about it, and then another person will see it, and so on and so forth. And so we've sort of gone the traditional, like really kind of informs the digital side. And then once that happens, we do something very simple. Anytime someone writes anything about us online, we just send them a quick note and say thank you, because if anybody here has ever run a blog or has their own, you know how much time it takes to actually put in that effort to put in like one blog post. Sometimes it can take like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, depending how detailed it is. So we just go that extra step and say like, thank you so much. You didn't really have to do this, and we really appreciate it. And some of these bloggers have driven, tens of thousands of dollars. Some have driven, maybe one sale or no sales, but we treat them all the same because they're all just as important.
And I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions if anyone has any. So raise of hands. Any questions?
Well, for us, one of our biggest partnerships and one of the more known partnerships was with Polyvore. We had the Polyvore community design a handbag for Rebecca Minkoff that ended up in our runway collection. Those type of communities that are really fashion-centric are great for us. We're heavily engaged in lookbook.nu. We're heavily engaged with the blog lovin' community. We're active with Chicktopia, Chickissimo. We work really, really closely now with Instagram. We're working closely soon, hopefully, with Pose. But we just integrate with the networks that make sense for us and helps us develop our content.
Okay, thank you very much.